If you want to start oil painting and explore this wonderful medium, painting an eye is one of the best places to start. It's connected to portrait painting, but without the intimidation of painting a full head. You get to learn so much: drawing accuracy, value control, edge quality, color temperature, brushwork. Plus, the model is so easy to find, and feel free to follow along. You can go and download our resources if you want, the link is in the description, or you can take a picture of your own eye, print it, and follow along as we do. Because the eye is a relatively simple subject, this is a great opportunity to draw directly with the brush. Instead of a graphite or charcoal drawing, which can be messy, we'll use a small brush and diluted raw umber to sketch directly on the canvas. This forces you to think in painterly terms right from the start. So what we're doing is just diluting a little bit of raw umber with just a little droplet of mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits. That's your solvent. First, we're spreading the paint on the surface, and then with a relatively big brush, we're just very lightly blocking in the main lines. We're not outlining details, we're just placing the bigger proportions, the angles, the relationships, the upper lid, the lower lid. Everything is positioned with simple economical marks, and we make sure to focus on the big shadow shape of the entire eye socket, thinking of the eye and the shadows of the eyebrow, the eyelids, as one big unit, one big shadow mass. No details are needed at this stage, but accuracy in the shapes. And you can erase if you want. Just grab a little piece of paper towel, roll it on itself to get something like that, and you can then simply erase. As I said, we don't just rely on the small anatomical landmarks, we also try to draw the big shadow shapes to get a comprehensive representation of the entire eye socket. We don't get sucked into details like the eyelashes. No, we try to get some solid, accurate shapes and focus on likeness. This stage is not about precision or beauty. It's not going to be beautiful at the end. It's about placement. A good painted underdrawing sets you up for success, but a bad one will probably create some problems down the line. So you want to take your time here and keep things simple. Now we're going to start the actual painting, and if you're still unsure about the painting techniques and the materials as we cover them, it's perfectly normal, so make sure to check out my oil painting course that covers all these things in great details. The link is in the description below. So my palette here is titanium white, yellow ochre, transparent iron oxide, pyrrole red, quinacridone rose, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and phthalo turquoise. With this palette, you have everything you need to mix convincing, flexible skin tones as long as you respect a little bit of method. We are going to try to be a little bit methodical, and we start with what's called the local color. We forget about the highlights, the shadows for the moment, and we ask ourselves one simple question. What is the general hue of the skin in the most neutral light imaginable? Most skin tones sit somewhere between yellow-orange and red-orange, depending on model. So we start with a base. We start with a mixing base of yellow ochre plus titanium white, and this is what's going to help us build most of the body of our mix. It's dull enough to feel organic, it has this light quality, and this yellow ochre is really close to actual skin tones, so it immediately puts us in the right hue family. But from there, it still needs to be a little bit more towards the orange side. The actual color of the skin is actually a very dull light orange. So we need to add what I call our tone, and this is transparent iron oxide here. This is really the best, the closest that we have to the natural hue of the skin. Straight from the tube, it almost mixes perfectly just with white. If it feels too light or if it feels too artificial, we want to temper it maybe with a touch of burnt umber, which is a much more dull brown that would also mix really well with this kind of hue range, because it's also in the same category of orange. And finally, once we have our base and our tone, we want to introduce our nuance. And for that, we need something that will create those blood-rich feeling, and this is why we introduce a little amount of pink with quinacridone rose, PV19. This is a very powerful pigment, so be careful, just use a small amount. This is the role of a nuance, it's just fine-tune the mix so that we get exactly the right shade that we desire. At this point, we're not really chasing anything perfect. First of all, because the color of the skin itself is not perfectly even, so it wouldn't be really a good strategy to try to nail it exactly. What we want is we want something that would sit comfortably on the canvas and that would create a decent impression of the natural hue of the skin. This is our local color. We want something that would be a good neutral reference point for everything else that follows. So now that we have our local color, we're going to try to do the shadows and the highlights. And we start with the highlights. We're going to raise the value. So we're going to make this mix lighter. And for that, it's very simple. We add titanium white. We do that sparingly because white can be extremely cool and can denaturate our mix quickly. So we want to keep that in mind. And if needed, we'll reintroduce a touch of yellow ochre to keep the warmth of the skin. If the highlights looks too chalky or too greenish, then a tiny amount of quinacridone rose can also bring it back to life, make it more pink, but be careful because most of the time the highlights tend to be more on the yellowish side. Try to avoid using too much pure white on its own. Skin highlights are rarely neutral. Even the thing that you would think are the lightest on your model are far from being pure white. Think of highlights as a reflection of the light source. It's not a different kind of part of the skin, it's just the part of the skin that's directly facing the light source and reflecting it like a mirror. Finally, we want to build the shadows, and this is where most mistakes happen. We don't want to darken here with black. That would be a huge mistake because black is part of the blue family, and here we are in the orange family. So darkening with black would be darkening with a complementary, which would desaturate way too much. So instead, what we want is we want to lower the value with a pigment that is in the same chromatic family, and we do that by using burnt umber. This is a wonderful dark brown, very intense, that will naturally lower the value. However, burnt umber on its own is a little bit too chromatic and it feels a little bit too brown for our taste, so we want to compensate that by using one of the complementaries of burnt umber in this. And for that we use ultramarine blue. It will cool and deepen the mix and also darken the mix at the same time. Basically, burnt umber and ultramarine blue create some kind of black, but it's a black with a lot of variety because we can make it warmer or cooler depending on what we need. Here we want to keep it warm, but not too warm, so we just use the ultramarine blue to kill the effect of the burnt umber if it gets too warm. Painting an eye is not about the details of the eyelashes or sharp highlights in the iris. It's about form, edges, restraint. We start by blocking in the shadow shapes as unified mass and avoid details as much as possible. Think of the eye socket as a small landscape of planes turning away from the light. Keep your paint thin and controlled at first, and remember that in the beginning we're establishing structure, we're not polishing, and we're not blending. Blending should be one of the final things that you think of when it comes to painting a subject like that. As you move into the halftones and the lights, you want to really pay attention to edge quality. Edge quality is much more important than blending. A lot of people confuse the two, but when we talk about edge quality, we talk about the end of the shadow shapes. The shadows and the light meet at certain points and they have edges. This is what you really want to describe well. This is not blending. This is describing the nature of the shadow shapes. Some shadow shapes are hard, some are soft, some are lost, they are barely visible, but very few are truly sharp, by the way, so make sure that you don't over-render and create something with way too many sharp edges, because it would just kill the realism of your painting. The strategy is roughly to cover the entire surface area as soon as we can with decent values, and then we start thinking about improving the modeling. We always think about values in and of itself. However we place them, we think about the values in the first place, and then we think about modeling and blending. We always paint the values perfectly before we think about blending them properly. We don't want our own brushwork to be a trap that would make us lose the values and lose the realism of the entire subject. Brushwork really matters here. It matters more than people think. We want to use fewer strokes, but place them more deliberately and resist the urge to blend everything too early. It's not the time yet. The subject should feel alive, not because it's been detailed and blended, but because the values are right where they need to be and because the paint is confidently applied. One key strategy is to work on this painting project in multiple layers, and this is something you can do. One of the biggest advantages of working in multiple layers, or at least across several sessions, is that it gives your eye time to reset. When you paint continuously for too long, your brain adapts to mistakes, starts to fall in love with errors. Proportions start to feel right, even though they aren't. The values sort of drift and color decisions become automatic instead of intentional. Taking a break and proceeding in several layers is really the best way to break that spell. Each new session allows you to come back with a fresh eye and see the painting again almost as if it were someone else's work. Issues in the drawing, the value relationships, the edge quality suddenly become obvious when you come back the next day. What felt convincing the day before often reveals exactly what needs correction the day after. Layering also creates a natural hierarchy in your decision making, and I think it's the easiest way for beginners to tackle the difficult art of oil painting. The first pass establishes the structure of the drawing, the big value relationships, and some very simple color statements. No pressure here, just do as well as you can, and always consider that there will be time to come back the next day and improve it. And then the next layers, they will refine it, refine the form, improve the transitions, adjust the chroma, and make all the corrections that are needed. And as you go, later layers become increasingly selective. You do less and less as you move on in the painting, and in the final layers you focus on subtle shifts, texture. And every time you build upon what you already had, instead of rebuilding everything from scratch, you improve what was already pretty good. In exercises like this eye painting, this approach is especially powerful. It's very powerful in portraits, but it can be applied to any subject. Each layer doesn't replace the previous one, it just improves it. You're not repainting every time, you're clarifying. You're correcting the mistakes, and most importantly, you're taking your time by choosing this approach. Edges become more intentional, values become more precise, color is more controlled because every decision is made in response to something that already exists, and you can always compare your current stage with what you had before. Working in layers is great for beginners because it also reduces pressure. You don't have to get it right immediately. You don't have to be a virtuoso to make a great painting, you just have to be consistent and persist in what you're doing. You're building toward accuracy, not demanding perfection on your first session. This mindset leads to a calmer, a more confident painting approach where you really take your time. Remember that making great art takes time. But if you have more time now, you can watch this video next. And I'll see you in the next one, my friends. As always, joy and inspiration to you. Bye.